The posting notice was 11 lines long. Marcus Voss read it 3 times, not because it was complicated, because he wanted to make sure he understood exactly what he was agreeing to. Nethovar Station, Outer Corridor, Mid-Ringway Orbit, 18 months. Solo Liaison Coordinator, 5 active Royal Delegations, Standard Compact Compensation plus Deep Space Supplement, 11 lines. And buried in line 9 a single phrase that most coordinators would have skimmed past without blinking. Previous coordinator departed early. Station systems under automated management for 31 days prior to new assignment. 31 days of automated management. Marcus sat with that for a moment. 31 days of a station running itself. 5 royal delegations aboard. Nobody reading the logs. Nobody checking whether the numbers matched the governing documents. Nobody doing the actual work. He signed the contract. He was 44 years old. He had been doing this for 21 years. Not because the pay was exceptional, though the deep space supplement helped. Not because the postings were glamorous. They weren't. They were remote and inconvenient, and most of them smelled like recycled air and machinery that needed servicing. He did it because somewhere around year 4, he had understood something that most coordinators never quite figured out. The postings nobody wanted were the postings that needed someone the most. His son Owen called the night before departure. Owen was 24. He lived in Denver. He had his mother's eyes and Marcus's habit of getting to the point without circling it first. "You're going somewhere with no other humans again," Owen said. "There are 48 humans on the station. Support staff, technical crew. You know what I mean." He did. "I'll be fine, Owen. You always say that. I'm always right." A pause. The particular pause that contains an entire argument both parties have silently agreed not to have. Not because the argument isn't valid, because they've had it before and neither of them changed their mind and they love each other anyway. "Call me when you get there," Owen said. "The signal delay is 40 minutes. "I know what a signal delay is, Dad." Marcus smiled at the wall of his apartment. At a son he wouldn't see for 18 months. At a life he was very good at putting in a drawer and coming back to. "I know you do," he said. Nethovar Station was smaller than he expected. Not physically. The station was a standard mid-ringway configuration, 6 rings radiating from a central axis, built specifically for this kind of purpose-neutral ground. Nobody's territory, everybody's inconvenience to reach. Which was the point. But it felt small, the way a house feels when nobody has been living in it properly. When things have been technically maintained but not actually cared for. When the difference between functional and tended has been allowed to grow into something you can feel when you walk through the door. The outgoing coordinator, a compact regional staffer named Pell, met him at the docking ring. He was pleasant, efficient. His handshake had the particular quality of a man who was very ready to leave and had been for some time. "Systems are stable," he said. "Delegations are settled into rotation. Advisors handle most of the day-to-day diplomatic traffic. You'll find the transition smooth." "I'm sure," Marcus said. He handed Marcus the station tablet. Marcus signed the transfer documentation. 40 minutes later, Pell was on the departure shuttle. Marcus stood in the coordinator's office and looked at the room. Clean desk, organized files, everything exactly where it should be. He sat down and started reading. It took him 3 hours to find the first discrepancy. A maintenance log entry. Eastern Atmospheric Corridor. Flagged 14 months ago as a calibration variance. Closed 2 days later. Status resolved. Except the calibration was still off. He could see it in the current environmental readings. Resolved meant someone had closed the file, not fixed the problem. He kept reading. By midnight he had found 9 more. By the following morning, 14. All 14 logged, all 14 closed with the same phrase, within acceptable parameters. All 14 still present in current station readings. And all 14, he noticed this on the third pass, the pass where patterns became visible, concentrated in 5 specific areas of the station. 5 specific suites. He pulled the delegation roster. 5 royal delegations currently in residence. He sat very still for a moment. Then he opened the hosting agreements. All 5. Read them cover to cover. Noted the specific environmental parameters required by each delegation. Compared them against current station readings. The discrepancies weren't random. They were precise. Every single one landed just below the threshold that would trigger a formal complaint. Just above the threshold that would cause immediate harm. In the exact space where a person would be uncomfortable. Chronically, persistently, daily uncomfortable. But not so uncomfortable that they could do anything about it officially, within acceptable parameters. Marcus closed the files, opened his maintenance kit, went to work. On day 8, he met Riven Veldath. Eastern Atmospheric Corridor Junction 3. Marcus had his panel open and his calibration tool in hand. The humidity variance was fixable in about 20 minutes if nobody interrupted him. Riven interrupted him. She appeared from the intersection ahead. Tall. Violet skin with the faint iridescent undertone the briefing materials described as characteristic of the Veldath lineage. Dark hair loose at her shoulders, traveling arrangement not formal court braiding. And she was carrying a small sealed container the size of a shoebox. Both hands. Careful. The particular careful of someone carrying something they will not put down. She stopped when she saw Marcus, looked at the open panel, then at him. "You found it," she said, not a question. The tone of someone who has been waiting a long time to see a problem acknowledged. "Calibration baseline hasn't been updated in 14 months, Marcus said. Your delegation's atmospheric requirements list a 19.4% humidity variance from standard compact mix. The automated system was compensating inside a tolerance range that was never corrected to account for it." Riven looked at the panel. The previous coordinator logged it. 4 times, Marcus said. He closed each entry as a systems anomaly. He adjusted the calibration sensor. "I find that approach unsatisfying." A silence. Not awkward. Something quieter than awkward. "What's in the container?" Marcus said. Riven's hands tightened slightly around the box. Not defensive. Older than defensive. "A plant specimen," she said. "It requires stable humidity." Something in the way she said it. The way you speak about the one thing you're actually afraid to lose. "The corridor humidity will hold within your parameters from this evening forward," Marcus said. "I'm setting a monthly verification flag." He closed the panel. When he turned, Riven was still there. "You didn't close the log entry?" Riven said. "No. You left it open." "The repair hasn't been verified against a full atmospheric cycle yet. I'll close it when it's actually resolved." Riven looked at him for a long moment. A recalibration. The particular kind that happens when someone does something so straightforward, you don't know what to do with it. "Thank you," she said. "Of course," Marcus said, and went to find the next one. On day 9, he met Kane Velkath. The station library was a small room at the central axis, 3,000 physical documents in various formats. The compact maintained it as a diplomatic courtesy. Physical documents are the one format every species can access without protocol negotiation. Marcus came to replace the lighting node above the western shelf. The maintenance log listed it as pending for 6 weeks. Kane was at the reading table, amber skin, dark eyes with a copper fleck at the iris, short dark hair with gold structural threading at the roots. A Velkath lineage marker Marcus recognized from the briefing files. She had a geological survey document open in front of her, and a secondary text beside it that appeared to be a compact territorial boundary registry. She looked up when Marcus came in. "That node has been at 30% for 6 weeks, she said. "I know, I'm fixing it now. The previous coordinator said he would add it to the service queue." "I'm not adding it to the service queue." Marcus was already up on the step stool panel open. "I'm fixing it." A brief silence. "It's the best light in the room," Kane said. "I know, that's why it's a priority." When Marcus climbed down, Kane had returned to her documents. The light was at full capacity. Kane didn't look up, but she said thank you. "Compact standard. Formal neutral register. The way you say something when you mean it precisely and don't intend to elaborate." "Of course," Marcus said, and left. On day 10, he met Solveig Valdori. This one he had been thinking about since day 2. The thermal log for the Valdori Suite Eastern Section second ring showed a variance of 3 degrees below stated comfort parameter. Logged twice. Flagged once. Closed as within acceptable tolerance. The acceptable tolerance field had been checked without being verified against the hosting agreement, which specified a 1-degree tolerance, not 3. Marcus arrived at the suite corridor with the thermal adjustment kit. Solveig was already there, standing in the corridor like she had been for some time. Not pacing, just standing. The way a person stands when waiting inside has become a kind of unbearable, and they need to be near the door without being dramatic about it. She was smaller than Marcus expected from the briefing materials. Emerald green skin, and in the corridor's functional light, it had a quality he couldn't immediately name. Not luminous exactly, more like the color had depth to it. Layers. Close-cropped dark hair with copper threading that caught the overhead light differently from the Velcath gold he'd seen the day before, and pale gold eyes that were watching Marcus approach with an expression he couldn't read at all. "I wasn't expecting maintenance," Solveig said. "The thermal log for your sleeping quarters shows a variance of 3 degrees below your stated comfort parameter." Marcus held up the kit. "The previous log entry closed it as within acceptable tolerance, but your hosting agreement specifies a 1-degree tolerance. I'm correcting the discrepancy." Solveig looked at the thermal adjustment kit, then at Marcus. "You read the hosting agreement." "I read all of them. My advisor submitted the thermal complaint 19 days ago." "I know. I'm sorry it took this long." Marcus indicated the door. "May I?" Solveig stepped aside. The fix took 12 minutes. When Marcus came out, Solveig was still in the corridor. This happened sometimes. People who had been waiting for something tended to stay close when it finally happened, as if proximity confirmed it was real. "Your station log uses my name," Solveig said. Marcus paused. "I beg your pardon." "The maintenance log. I've read the previous entries for this suite. They list the occupant as Delegation Guest Eastern Suite 2. Your entries list me as Princess Solveig Valdori, 3rd Delegation." A pause. "That is my name." "The hosting agreement specifies your name," Marcus said. "I use whatever the hosting agreement specifies." The previous 41 log entries did not. Marcus didn't have a good answer for that. The honest answer was that he had noticed it when he updated the log format on day 2 and had simply corrected it. It hadn't seemed like anything significant. It was just accurate. "I default to the governing document," he said. Solveig looked at him. That particular quality of attention that isn't quite scrutiny, more like careful calibration. The way you look at something when you're deciding whether to trust it. "Thank you for the thermal correction," she said. Correct. Formal. Telling Marcus nothing and meaning something anyway. "The suite should hold temperature now," Marcus said. "I've set a verification flag for the end of the week." He left, and was halfway down the corridor before he acknowledged to himself that he was still thinking about those pale gold eyes. Stop it. He had a relay board to fix. On day 11 he met Audra Velsorn, equipment storage bay, lower ring. The station's primary data relay had dropped to 40% transmission capacity. The maintenance log showed a workaround-in-place manual buffer boost every 6 hours that someone had apparently been running as a long-term solution for 3 months. 3 months of a manual workaround. For a part that cost 400 compact credits and took 6 minutes to replace. Marcus was elbow-deep in the relay housing when he heard someone come in. Dark skin with a warm depth that the overhead light turned almost luminous. Bright silver eyes that moved across the equipment bay, with the specific attention of someone accustomed to reading data in environments that weren't designed for reading data. She was carrying a tablet dense with observational records. "Can you fix it?" she said. "The transmission buffer board is partially corroded." Marcus didn't look up. "I need to replace the board. Ordered the part on day 2. It arrives on the next supply run." "When is the supply run?" "Day 17. Audra looked at the relay unit. "The data I lost when it degraded, that's not recoverable." "No." Marcus pulled out the corroded board, turned it over. The buffer workaround should have been flagged as temporary with a part order attached. It wasn't. I'm sorry. Can the workaround be automated until day 17, so it runs on a cycle instead of requiring manual intervention? Marcus looked at her properly for the first time. That was a good question. Practical, specific, technically precise. The question of someone who understood the system she was working with. Yes, Marcus said. I can set that up in about 20 minutes. Then I can continue mapping and only lose the 6 days already gone. Correct. He set up the automated buffer cycle. Audra watched. Asked 2 questions about cycle parameters that were exact enough to indicate a working knowledge of relay systems well beyond casual familiarity. When Marcus closed the panel, Audra said, "The previous coordinator told my aide the relay degradation was known systems behavior and didn't require investigation." Marcus picked up his kit. He was wrong. Something shifted in Audra's expression. Contained. Present. "I'm beginning to form a picture of the previous coordinator," she said. "I wouldn't say anything about him on record," Marcus said. "No," Audra agreed. "But I appreciate the implication." On day 13, he met Ren Velkarath. Shared recreation space, replacing a humidity sensor that had been flagged 6 weeks ago. The room was used by off-duty station staff and delegation members who needed space outside their suite corridors. Ren was sitting in the corner with a technical manual and 3 notebooks, youngest of the 5. Silver-green skin, silver hair close-cropped, dark eyes that came up from the manual and immediately began cataloging everything about Marcus's presence, the kit, the specific sensor housing he was targeting, the way Marcus had positioned himself to access the panel. "You're the coordinator," she said. "I am. You're the only human above support staff level on the station." Also true. She considered this. Do humans often end up as the only human somewhere? Marcus looked at her. The question was genuine. No social performance behind it. "More often than you'd think," he said. "Does it bother you?" Marcus thought about it honestly. "Depends on the posting. Some postings are lonely. This one has enough to keep me occupied." Ren glanced at her notebooks, then back. "You've been here 13 days, and you've repaired 11 documented system faults, overruled 2 access restriction requests, and the atmospheric calibration in the Eastern Ring is now running within hosting agreement parameters for the first time in 14 months. Marcus's hands stilled on the sensor housing. "You've been reading the work order log." "It's a public record accessible to all station residents," Ren said. "I read it each morning." A pause. "Is there something I can help you with?" Marcus said. "Not presently." Ren looked at the sensor housing. "I was interested in understanding what you do. Right now, I'm replacing a humidity sensor. The log says it was flagged 6 weeks ago. I got to it today." Ren nodded. Slow, deliberate. The nod of someone filing something away with particular care. "My court advisor told me I shouldn't spend time in the shared recreation spaces," she said, "because the environmental controls are unreliable." "They were unreliable," Marcus said. "The humidity sensor is now replaced. The calibration should hold. Then I can use this room. You could have used it before. The variance was in the discomfort range but below the health threshold. Your advisor overstated the case." Ren looked at the repaired housing for a moment, then at Marcus. "I've been working on something," she said. "A proposal for reformed atmospheric calibration standards across compact multi-species stations." A pause. "My advisor doesn't know about it." "What's the proposal's current stage?" "Draft. Mostly complete." A shorter pause. "When I mentioned to the previous coordinator that I was interested in atmospheric systems, he told me it wasn't within the scope of a delegation member's responsibilities." Marcus replaced the panel cover, turned to look at Ren directly. "The station charter defines delegation members' research rights broadly," he said. "Atmospheric systems engineering falls within scope if the research has potential implications for station operational standards." He held Ren's gaze. "Bring me the draft when it's ready. I'll review it." Ren stared at him, stared it down, not startled exactly. Recalibrating. The particular expression of someone receiving information that doesn't fit the model they've been operating from. All right, she said. Marcus picked up his kit. The room is yours, he said, and left. On day 16, the 5 court advisors requested a formal meeting. Standard liaison protocol. Coordinator meets the advisor tier first, not the royal tier. The royal tier doesn't concern itself with operational details. The advisor tier is the working layer of any diplomatic mission. Marcus sat across from all 5 of them in the station's formal conference space. They were pleasant, correct, professional, and each of them in slightly different language using slightly different phrasing, said approximately the same thing. Maintain appropriate boundaries between compact operational staff and delegation members. Advisor Holt Valdorn said it twice. Marcus wrote it down. Every word of every request. Every name attached to every request. Then he went back to his office and read the charter again, because the charter was the governing document. And the governing document did not say what they wanted it to say. On day 19, he went back to the library to replace a secondary lighting node above the eastern shelf that he'd flagged during the original repair and hadn't gotten to yet. Solvi was there. She was always there in some configuration of the morning. Marcus had noticed this, had filed it, had not examined the filing too closely. Solvi looked up when Marcus came in, looked at the node, looked at Marcus. There's another one, she said. Secondary unit. I flagged it during the original repair. Marcus climbed the step stool. It's at 63%, less urgent but below spec. You flagged it and came back. That's generally how repairs work. A silence, not uncomfortable. Most people, Solvi said, would have called it close enough. Marcus replaced the node, climbed down. Close enough isn't the same as correct. Solvi looked at him. Those pale gold eyes doing that thing they did. That careful, direct, entirely unhurried assessment. No, she said quietly. It isn't. Marcus picked up his kit. The room should be at full specification now, he said. Thank you, Solvi said, and meant something by it that went beyond the lighting node. On day 23, Solvi sat down across from Marcus in the library during the morning log review that had become, without official designation, a daily habit for both of them. She sat down and did not open a document. Marcus waited. My court advisor, Solvi said, has requested a formal meeting with you. I know. I received the request this morning. He's going to ask you to limit contact with members of the Valdori delegation to formal advisory channels only. A pause. He's also going to ask you to remove my name from the maintenance log entries and replace it with the standard delegation designator. I know what he's going to ask, Marcus said. Do you know what you're going to say? Well, no to both. Silence. He'll escalate, Solvi said. That's his prerogative. Solvi looked at him with those pale gold eyes. Steady, not flinching from anything. Can I ask you something directly? Yes. Why? Marcus set down his stylus. Which part? Any of it. The name in the log. The thermal fix after 19 days. The atmospheric recalibration. The secondary lighting node you flagged and came back for. Why does any of it matter to you? Because the hosting agreement was the governing document and the log should match it. Because the thermal variance was outside your stated tolerance parameter. Because the calibration baseline was wrong. Because the node was at 63% and below specification. Marcus paused. Those are the procedural answers. I know, Solvi said. What's the other one? Marcus considered this for a moment. I've been doing this job for 21 years, he said. And I've sat across from a lot of people who were being managed instead of helped, who had systems that were technically functional, but actually designed to make things harder for them. And I find that... He stopped. Unsatisfying, Solvi said quietly. Yes. Marcus looked at her. Unsatisfying is the right word. A silence. Then Solvi said, Coordinator Pell received a monthly supplemental payment, not from the compact, from a joint advisory account administered by the 5 court advisors. Marcus went very still. He was paid, Solvay said, to maintain the station at minimum functional threshold, to close log entries without resolution, to deny research equipment access requests where possible, to treat our presence here as an administrative inconvenience rather than a legitimate diplomatic posting. She said it with a precise flatness, the voice of someone who has reduced something to this language deliberately over a long time to manage the weight of it. How long have you known? Marcus said. I suspected from the first month. Confirmed it in month 4. Solvay paused. It's not just us. The 5 court advisors coordinated this arrangement before we arrived, before any of us arrived. We weren't assigned here because it was a suitable posting. We were assigned here because it was far enough from primary court that our absence wouldn't draw comment, and because they had already ensured the coordinator in place would cooperate with the management approach. Marcus looked at her. Why are you telling me this now? Because you've been here 23 days and you've done more than Pell did in 14 months. A pause. And because Advisor Valdorn's meeting request this morning was not a routine protocol reminder. He's escalating. The current approach isn't working as intended. Those pale gold eyes were steady, giving Marcus something, not holding it back. I thought you should know what you're walking into. Marcus held her gaze. 21 years of postings. 21 years of sitting in the middle of competing frameworks and keeping his head down and doing his job correctly and going wherever the next assignment sent him. He had never walked away from a posting unfinished. He wasn't going to start now. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me yet, Solvay said quietly. Advisor Valdorn is not careless, and whatever comes next, he will have documentation. So will I, Marcus said. The anonymous message came on day 28, internal station channel, routed through the public research terminal in the library. No sender identification. 4 words. They're hiding what we found. Marcus read it twice, sat back, then opened his files. All 5 delegation research records, public station documents he had access to as coordinator, and began reading from the beginning. He read through the night. Riven Veldath, 47 days of documented growth measurements on a plant specimen. Meticulous. Rigorous. The hypothesis embedded in the data that the specimen was exhibiting a previously undocumented adaptive response to artificial gravity was specific and testable, and if Marcus understood the botanical implications correctly, significant. Kane Velkath geological survey data from the Velkath secondary moon. Months of it. The analysis pointed toward something Marcus wasn't fully qualified to evaluate, but the words unauthorized extraction appeared in the notation 17 times. Audra Velsorn stellar debris mapping. Dense technical, most of it beyond Marcus's immediate expertise. But the timestamp patterns were odd. Audra had been collecting this data for months before arriving at Nathavar, and there were coordinates embedded in the mapping data that didn't correspond to any debris field Marcus could identify in the station's reference charts. Ren Velkarath, the atmospheric proposal. She had said it was mostly complete. That was an understatement. It was thorough, technical, specific, and its implications Marcus could see, this even without engineering expertise, would render a significant category of current station equipment contracts obsolete. Solvay Valdori materials analysis of compound samples with applications in structural integrity assessment for habitat construction in low-gravity environments. The research wasn't dangerous on its face, but the notation referenced a patent dispute between 2 compact-aligned corporate entities, and Solvay's data appeared to resolve the dispute in a direction that one of those entities would find very costly. Marcus closed the files, sat in the dark of his office with the hum of the life support systems in the walls. They're hiding what we found. Not 5 inconvenient royal daughters sent somewhere out of sight. 5 researchers whose work taken together touched extraction rights violations, environmental data with territorial implications, equipment, contract liability, conflict classification arguments, and a corporate patent dispute that crossed at least 3 compact allied court interests, all in the same place, all with the same coordinator who had been paid to ensure their work went nowhere. He thought about Pell's handshake at the docking ring, the handshake of a man who was very ready to leave. He thought about all 14 log entries, within acceptable parameters. He thought about a small, sealed container held in both hands, about a lighting node at 30% for 6 weeks, about a thermal variance that had been filed and closed in 2 days, about a young woman in a corner of a broken room filling 3 notebooks with work nobody had told her she was allowed to do. Marcus Voss had been doing this job for 21 years. He was still going to do it correctly. He opened a new file on his personal tablet, started a log entry, encrypted it, saved the encryption key somewhere that wasn't the station's main server. Then he made coffee and read the charter again from the beginning, because he was going to need every word. Day 30 started the way most days started, with a list. Marcus had a system, had always had a system. Every morning, 6:15 before coffee, he opened the station log and read everything that had changed overnight. Every alert, every flag, every entry closed or opened or modified by anyone other than himself. Most coordinators checked the alerts. Marcus read everything, which is how he noticed on day 30 that Wren's equipment access clearance had been quietly downgraded overnight. Not revoked, downgraded, from full research tier to observation only. No formal request filed, no advisory dispute logged, just different than it was the night before. He fixed it before breakfast. Then he wrote a formal notation in the station administrative record documenting the unauthorized modification and its correction, time-stamped, cited the relevant charter clause, filed it in a location that couldn't be quietly deleted. Then he drank his coffee. They're getting impatient. Good. Impatient people make mistakes. On day 34, Advisor Holt Valdorn came to his office. He had been expecting him. What he hadn't expected was how calm he was. That was the thing about Valdorn. He was never loud, never obviously threatening. He had the particular smoothness of a man who had spent decades in court politics and understood that the most dangerous pressure is the kind that doesn't look like pressure at all. He sat down across from Marcus's desk. "Mr. Voss," he said. "Compact standard. Perfectly neutral. I appreciate your dedication to station maintenance. Truly, the environmental improvements have been noted. I'm glad to hear it. However," a small pause, "there is some concern among the advisory council about the nature of your interactions with certain delegation members. My interactions are within the scope defined by the station charter. The charter," he said, "allows for significant interpretive latitude, which I've applied consistently according to the governing text." He smiled, a very practiced smile. "We would find it helpful if you would agree going forward to route communications with delegation members through the advisory channels, as a courtesy. The charter doesn't require that." "No, but courtesies build relationships." "The charter," Marcus said, "defines my operational function. If you believe I've exceeded it, the formal appeal process is available to you." The smile stayed exactly where it was. "The appeal process," he said, "would be unfortunate for everyone." "The appeal process," Marcus said, "takes 45 to 90 days, during which the charter's provisions remain in effect." A beat. "There is also the matter of the maintenance log," he said, "the naming convention for the Valdori suite. The hosting agreement specifies the delegation member's name. The log reflects the hosting agreement. A delegation designator would be more standard. The hosting agreement is the governing document." "Mr. Voss." Still calm. "I'm asking as a courtesy." "I know," Marcus said, "and I'm declining as a matter of procedure." He looked at Marcus for a long moment. Not angry. Something colder than angry. The expression of a man who is recalibrating, who has encountered a variable he underestimated. "Very well," he said, and left. Marcus waited until the door closed. 3 requests, all declined. He wrote every word of the conversation down, time-stamped, filed it next to the access modification documentation from day 30, building a record. Because that's how you fight someone who fights with paperwork. You make better paperwork. On day 39, Audra found him in the equipment bay. Marcus was installing the new relay board. The supply run had come in 2 days early. He had gone straight to the bay. Audra appeared in the doorway, closed it behind her. That was new. "I sent the message," she said. On day 28, the anonymous one. Marcus didn't look up from the relay housing. I know. How? The routing pattern. You used the public research terminal. The timestamp was 2:14 in the morning. You're the only delegation member whose observation log shows consistent late-night data review sessions. He seated the new board. And the message referred to what we found. Plural. You knew the others' research well enough to speak for all of them. Audra came in and sat down on the equipment crate across from him. I need to show you something, she said. She opened her tablet, called up the stellar debris mapping data. This is the standard debris field visualization for the Nethavar outer approach corridor, she said. I've been mapping it for 8 months. I know. I read your research files. Audra looked at him sharply. They're public station documents, Marcus said. I read everything. A beat. Then Audra continued. 6 weeks before we were deployed here, I detected an anomalous pattern, not debris. Transit signatures. Specifically, she zoomed the display, the transit signature of 5 ships rendezvousing at this coordinate. This corridor is not on any registered compact transit route. Marcus looked at the coordinate. How far from the station? 4.3 light hours, far enough to be outside the station's standard monitoring range. Audra overlaid a timeline. The rendezvous occurred 7 weeks before our assignment orders were issued. 7 weeks. Before the assignments. You're saying they coordinated our placement here, Marcus said. I'm saying 5 ships whose signatures I've partially matched to court-affiliated transport vessels from 3 of the 5 delegations met at a location specifically chosen to be outside monitoring range. 7 weeks before 5 royal delegation members were simultaneously assigned to the same remote neutral station. Audra paused. I'm saying that's not coincidence. Marcus stared at the coordinates on the screen. He had known it was deliberate. Solvay had told him about Pell's payments. He had understood the shape of it. But this was different. This was evidence. Timestamps. Coordinates. Transit signatures. The kind of documentation that couldn't be explained away as advisory preference or interpretive latitude. Have you filed this with any registry? Marcus asked. Not yet. Audra's silver eyes were steady. I wanted to talk to you first. She wanted to talk to you first. 21 years. 21 years of staying neutral. Keep the raw data backed up in 3 separate locations, Marcus said. Not on the main station server. Already done. Good. He turned back to the relay board, finished seating the connections. The board replacement will take about 10 more minutes. Then your transmission capacity should be back to full. Audra watched him work. That's all you're going to say. For now. Marcus tightened the final connection. I need to think. We don't have unlimited time. I know. Marcus closed the panel, turned to look at her directly. I'm not going to let that make me careless. On day 43, Marcus learned what was inside Riven's box. Not because Riven told him directly, because Marcus was repairing the secondary humidity sensor in the Veldath delegation suite, a unit he'd flagged during the initial diagnostic, and Riven was there, and the box was open. For just a moment. One small open moment, inside a plant. No bigger than a hand. Pale silver leaves so thin they were nearly translucent. Growing in a substrate that wasn't standard compact soil. Something darker, denser, carefully prepared. Riven saw Marcus see it. She closed the box. Slowly. The way you close something you have been protecting for a very long time. That's what the Botanical Registry inquiry was about, Marcus said. Not a question. Yes. The adaptive gravity response. Yes. Riven held the box in both hands. It's the last one. Marcus looked at her. The species was endemic to Hellevar 4, Riven said. Her voice was even. Careful. The voice of someone who has spent a very long time making it even and careful when they talk about this particular thing. Hellevar the 4th was destroyed. In the resource extraction conflict, 31 years ago, Marcus had heard of the Hellevar conflict. Most compact historians had. A border dispute over mineral rights that had escalated into something much worse before anyone with authority had intervened. The kind of conflict that gets classified as a regional resource dispute in official documentation and doesn't get called what it actually was for another generation. 2 of the 5 courts, Marcus said quietly. They were party to the hell of our conflict. Yes. Riven's hands didn't move. My mother's court spent 12 years trying to get the conflict formally classified as a war crime under compact treaty law. They were unsuccessful. The documentation kept being lost, misfiled, closed without investigation. A pause. If my research on this specimen is published through the Compact Botanical Registry, the species' documented origin site is on the public record. That has implications for the conflict classification argument. A plant. One small plant in a box. And inside it, 31 years of a court's attempt to have something called what it actually was. Advisor Valdorn knows about the specimen, Marcus said. He knows I have it. He doesn't know the research stage. Riven's gold eyes met his. He has been trying for 4 months to find grounds to authorize a search of my personal effects. He doesn't have grounds. No, but he's looking. Marcus picked up his kit. Keep the box in your personal effects inventory. Formally logged as a cultural artifact under the Diplomatic Materials Protection Clause of the hosting agreement. He paused. Section 7. It requires written coordinator authorization to override, which means he'd need my agreement, and I won't give it. Riven looked at him. That recalibration. But different now. Deeper. The look of someone who has been holding something alone for a very long time and has just unexpectedly not had to. Why are you doing this? She said. Because it's in the charter, Marcus said. Riven almost smiled. That's the procedural answer. Yes, Marcus said. It is. He left, and didn't give the other answer, because the other answer was still taking shape, and he wanted to understand its full dimensions before he said it out loud. On day 47, Kane came to his office. Knocked, waited, came in with a tablet and sat down with the particular formality of someone who has decided a conversation is serious enough to have sitting down. I need to know my research access is protected, she said. Direct, no preamble. Your research access is currently at full delegation tier. Advisor Cauldron submitted an access restriction request 8 days ago. Kane's copper fleck eyes were steady. I know because I have a copy of the submission routing confirmation. You denied it within 48 hours. I did. He submitted a second one 5 days ago. Also denied. He'll submit a third. Also denied. The charter doesn't support the restriction grounds he's using. Kane looked at her tablet. The geological survey data I've been compiling for 7 months documents unauthorized extraction activity on Velkath's secondary moon. Extraction conducted by a consortium that includes 3 compact registered companies, which means it's not just a treaty violation, it's a compact charter violation. She paused. My court doesn't know the full scope of the data yet. My advisor knows I'm conducting geological research. He doesn't know what it shows. When did you intend to file the formal analysis? I need another 6 weeks to complete the documentation to registry standard. Kane met his eyes. I need 6 weeks of uninterrupted access to the spectral analysis equipment. You have it. You can guarantee that... I can guarantee that the charter supports your access, and I will continue to enforce the charter. Marcus paused. What I can't guarantee is that the escalation level from your advisor won't increase as the filing date approaches. I know. Kane folded her hands. I wanted to know if you would hold. Yes, Marcus said. Simply, I'll hold. Kane looked at him for a long moment, then stood, picked up the tablet, paused at the door. The previous coordinator approved an access restriction on my preliminary survey data 14 months ago, she said. Advisor Cauldron submitted the request on day 2 of that posting. He approved it in 36 hours. I know. I read the logs. You read the logs? Kane said quietly, as if confirming something she had suspected but needed to hear confirmed. All of them, Marcus said, from the beginning. Kane was quiet for a moment. Thank you, she said. Precise. Formal. The same register she used for everything, except this time there was something underneath it. The door closed. Marcus updated the station access log, added a notation, time-stamped it. One entry at a time. On day 54, everything went wrong at 2 in the morning. The alert came through as a low-priority systems flag, which is how Marcus knew immediately that something was very wrong. Because a pressure variance in the Eastern Ring was not a low-priority event. Had never been a low-priority event in the history of station operations. Someone had reclassified it. He was out of his bunk before the second alert sounded, moving fast through the corridor in the way of someone who has 21 years of practice at moving fast without running. The Eastern Ring atmospheric panel was already flashing amber when he got there. He opened it, looked at the readings. The pressure was dropping, slowly, but steadily. The kind of drop that left unaddressed becomes a cascade failure in 6 to 8 hours. And the cause he was looking at it now was not mechanical fault. The sensor calibration had been overridden. Someone had manually adjusted the sensitivity threshold so that small pressure fluctuations registered as within normal parameters, when they were not. He pulled up the sensor modification log. The override had been entered from a remote terminal at 11:47 p.m. using Coordinator Pell's access credentials. Pell left this station 51 days ago. His hands kept working, because his hands knew what to do, because 21 years of postings had made his hands very good at working while his brain was doing something else entirely. He heard footsteps, turned, Solvi, in the corridor. Wearing what was clearly a sleeping robe, pale gold eyes sharp and fully awake in a way that suggested she had not been sleeping at all. "The pressure alarm," Solvi said. "I have it." "What do you need?" Marcus looked at her, then at the panel, then made a decision. "If you can run atmospheric calculations," he said, "I need a second set of numbers. Tell me what you're working with." And that was that. No more discussion. Solveig stepped up beside him, took the tablet Marcus handed her, and started running numbers. They worked for 3 hours and 22 minutes. Didn't talk much. Didn't need to. There was the work and the numbers and the rhythm of two people who happen to think in compatible ways, solving a problem that needs solving. At 4:39 a.m., the Eastern Ring pressure stabilized. Marcus closed the panel, stood up. His back hurt. It always hurt after floor work. He was 44, and some mornings reminded him of that with considerable specificity. Solveig handed back the tablet. Her copper-threaded hair had escaped whatever she'd had it in before sleep. Her eyes were tired, and she was looking at Marcus with something he was not going to name at 4:39 in the morning on a station floor. "The sensor override," Solveig said. "It was deliberate." "Yes. Who has access to override station sensors remotely?" "Station personnel with Level 3 clearance, or someone using the credentials of a person with Level 3 clearance." Marcus paused. Coordinator Pell had Level 3 clearance. Solveig was very still. "Pell is gone," she said. "His credentials are still in the system." Marcus looked at the panel. "Someone has been using them." A silence. Not the comfortable library silence. Something with weight in it. "Marcus," Solveig said. "Just his name. The way you say something when it's the only thing that fits." "I know," he said. "This isn't just about keeping us inconvenienced anymore." "No," Marcus said. "It isn't." He looked at the sealed panel, at the timestamp on the sensor override entry sitting in the log, like something that thought it was invisible. 11:47 p.m. Someone on this station had tried tonight to create a cascade pressure failure in the ring where Solveig and Riven both lived. Had calibrated it precisely enough to look like a slow mechanical failure. Had set it to progress overnight while the station slept, using a dead man's key. "Go back to your suite," Marcus said. "Lock the internal bolt, not just the standard seal. Don't mention this to anyone until I've traced the terminal." Solveig looked at him. "You're not going back to sleep," she said. "No." A pause. Those pale gold eyes, tired, direct, not looking away. "Neither am I," Solveig said. "Solveig. I'll wait in my suite. Door bolted." A pause. But I'm not going to sleep pretending I don't know what just happened. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. All right, he said. Solvay went. Marcus stood alone in the Eastern Ring corridor with the hum of the freshly stabilized life support systems in the walls. He pulled out his personal tablet, opened his encrypted log, started writing. He found the terminal on day 58, 4 days of quiet, methodical investigation, running it alongside his daily work, not rushing, not showing his hand. The terminal was in the secondary equipment storage space in Ring 4. Low traffic. Good sight lines to the corridor. The kind of location you'd choose if you wanted to access a system without being observed. The access log showed 9 entries in the past 30 days, all using Pell's credentials, all timed between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. He pulled the station's internal movement records, cross-referenced against the 9 timestamps. It took him most of the night, but he found it. One person whose logged movements put them in the Ring 4 corridor on 6 of the 9 dates. Advisor Holt Valdorn, the man who had sat across from his desk, smooth and calm and practiced. We would find it helpful if you would agree going forward to route communications through the advisory channels. Who had smiled when Marcus declined, because he already had another plan. Marcus sat with this for a long time. Then he thought about what Audra had shown him. The transit signatures. 7 weeks before the assignments. 5 ships meeting outside the station's monitoring range. And he thought about Pell's handover documentation. The deactivation box. Checked. Completed. Signed. But the credentials were active. Either nobody had noticed for 58 days, or someone had noticed, and ensured the oversight remained. They were always planning an exit. He looked at the atmospheric panel, at the dark corridor, at the station around him, all 6 rings, all 48 human support staff, all 5 royal delegations, all of it humming in the dark of deep space. They're not just hiding what the 5 of them found, because Wren's atmospheric proposal would void equipment contracts, and Kane's geological data would trigger a compact investigation, and Riven's botanical documentation would reopen a conflict classification argument that 2 courts had spent 30 years suppressing, and Solvay's materials research would cost someone a great deal of money, and Audra's transit data would put all 5 advisory councils in the same frame, together, not 5 inconvenient daughters, 5 researchers whose work taken together formed something that looked like a case. And Valdorn had known that, had known it before any of them arrived, had planned accordingly. Marcus opened the station charter, read it again from the beginning, because he was going to need every word. On day 61, Solvay found him in the Eastern Ring. Morning inspection. Marcus did the pressure seals himself now, every 30 days minimum. Solvay fell into step beside him without being invited, which was by now simply how it was. They walked in silence through the first 2 junctions. At the third, Solvay said, "The departure request. My court filed it this morning." "I know. I received the notification at 6 a.m. Advisor Valdorn told me last night it would be filed. He told you before he filed it. He wanted me to know I had no alternative." Marcus checked the 3rd seal, made a notation, moved to the 4th. "The charter has a provision for exactly this situation," he said. Section 14. A delegation member in residence during an active hosting rotation can invoke a continuing mission exemption. It holds departure status pending liaison review. How long is the review period? 30 days. Solvay walked beside him, quiet for a moment. "It doesn't solve the underlying situation," she said. "No, it buys 30 days. Marcus paused. 30 days is time. Marcus. The way she said it, just the name, the weight of it. If I invoke the exemption, if you hold to the charter through everything Valdorn escalates to next, what happens in 30 days? Marcus checked the 4th seal, thought about 9 terminal access entries, 6 movement record matches, an active credential that shouldn't exist, a sensor override timed to look like mechanical failure. Thought about 5 research files sitting in the station document system, unsecured. "I need you to trust me for 30 days, Marcus said. Solvay stopped walking. Marcus stopped too. Turned. Those pale gold eyes, not holding back, giving him something warm and steady and entirely unhurried. I've read the governing documents on 6 diplomatic postings, Solvay said. I've never been on one where anyone else read them first. A pause. Not once. In 6 years. Marcus held her gaze. Invoke the Section 14 exemption tomorrow morning, he said. File it through the station administrative office. He held Solvay's gaze. And tell the others to be ready. When I ask you to move fast, we won't have much time. Solvay looked at him for a long moment. All right, she said. All right, Marcus said. They stood in the pressure-sealed corridor of a deep space station orbiting a dead secondary in the Nethavar outer corridor. Life support humming in the walls around them. Pale functional light overhead. Neither of them said anything else. Because some things don't need words. Some things are already understood. Day 63. Marcus stopped sleeping through the night. Not dramatically. Not nightmares. Just... He would wake at 3 a.m. and lie in the dark, and his brain would already be running. Already listing. Already checking. Terminal access log. Movement records. Sensor override timestamp. Pell's credentials. Valdorn's smile. He would lie there for 20 minutes. Then get up. Make coffee. Open his encrypted log and add whatever connection his sleeping brain had surfaced. It was a very thorough encrypted log by day 63. He hadn't reported it yet, because the evidence was solid but the timing wasn't, because the moment he filed a formal report Valdorn would know. And Valdorn still had active access to station infrastructure through Pell's credentials. And Marcus was not going to file a report and then watch him use those 48 hours to do something he couldn't undo. He needed the research secured first, all 5 files. Out of the station server and into the compact registry where they would have independent timestamps and verification. Where nobody, not Valdorn, not the advisory council, not whoever was above the advisory council, could quietly make them disappear. He was working on that. Quietly. Methodically. On day 67, Wren came to his office. Knocked. Waited. Came in with both hands holding a tablet like it was something that could break. I finished it, she said. Marcus looked up. The atmospheric proposal. It's complete. Wren set the tablet on the desk. I'd like you to review it before I file. Marcus looked at the tablet, then at Wren. Sit down, he said. Wren sat. Marcus read the proposal from the first line to the last. Took 45 minutes. Didn't rush it. Wren sat across from him and didn't fidget. Just waited. The particular stillness of someone who has put everything they have into something and is waiting to find out if it's enough. It was enough. More than enough. Marcus set the tablet down. This is the best technical proposal I've read in 21 years, he said. Wren blinked. Just once. You're not saying that to be kind. I don't say things to be kind when accuracy serves better. Wren looked at the tablet, then at Marcus. The proposal will void the current atmospheric equipment contracts for 16 compact stations. The companies holding those contracts are registered in 3 court jurisdictions. I know. My advisor will try to stop the filing. I know that too. Can he? Marcus thought about 9 terminal access entries, about an active credential that shouldn't exist, about a cascade pressure failure timed for 2 in the morning. Not if we file it correctly, he said, and not if we file it soon. Wren held his gaze. How soon? I'll let you know when. Marcus picked up the tablet. Leave this with me. I need to prepare the submission documentation. Wren stood, paused. The previous coordinator, she said, told me that atmospheric engineering was outside the scope of a delegation member's intellectual responsibilities. She said it without heat. The flat delivery of something repeated to yourself enough times that the sting has been managed down to a dull edge. He said it in front of my court advisor and 2 station staff members. Marcus looked at her. He was wrong. I know, Wren said, but it helped to hear you say it. She left. Marcus sat with the proposal tablet in his hands. Thought about a young woman in a corner of the recreation space with 3 notebooks and a technical manual. Self-teaching. Working in secret. Writing something that could change safety standards for thousands of people across 16 stations. In a room with a broken humidity sensor that nobody had fixed for 6 weeks. He set the tablet down, picked up his encrypted log, kept building the record. On day 71, Kane brought him the completed geological analysis, filed it with Marcus for pre-submission review. Precise. Formal. The way Kane did everything. Marcus read it, understood less than half the technical detail, understood completely what it meant. This is sufficient to trigger a formal compact extraction investigation, Marcus said. Yes. Kane's copper-fleck eyes were steady. The documentation is to registry standard. Your advisor will know the moment it's filed. I know. He'll escalate to the full advisory council. I know that too. Marcus looked at her. Kane, when this is filed, it doesn't just affect your court's position. It affects 3 compact registered companies. It potentially implicates 2 other delegations in treaty violations. I know what it implicates, Kane said. Quiet, not cold. Exact. I've known for 7 months. I've spent 7 months making sure the documentation is precise enough that it cannot be challenged on technical grounds. A pause. I need it filed. I need it on the record where it cannot be made to disappear. Okay, Marcus said. Just that. Okay. Kane looked at him for a moment. All of us read your log notations, she said. Every time you overrule a restriction request, you file a notation with the charter citation. We read them. Marcus hadn't known that. He sat with it. The charter is the governing document, he said finally. I'm just applying it. You're applying it for us, Kane said. That's different. She left. Marcus looked at the geological analysis on his desk. 2 files ready, 3 to go. On day 73, all 5 of them were in the library at the same time. Marcus found out later it wasn't planned. Audra had come to show Riven something in the stellar debris data. Kane had come to use the physical reference archive. Wren had come because she came most afternoons now, and Solvay was already there. They had been talking for an hour before Marcus walked in with his daily log review. He stopped in the doorway. All 5. 1 table. Documents spread between them, looking at him. He came in, sat down in the remaining chair. Didn't say anything. Neither did anyone else for a moment. Then Riven said, Solvay told us about the pressure override. Marcus looked at Solvay. They needed to know, Solvay said simply. She was right. They did. Someone accessed station infrastructure using a former coordinator's credentials, Marcus said, to create a slow cascade pressure failure in the eastern ring. He looked around the table. I've traced the terminal access. I know who it was. 5 sets of eyes. Advisor Valdorn, Audra said. Not a question. Yes. Wren was very still. What does he want? He wants your research files gone before any of them reach a registry. Marcus paused. He knows what they are individually. I believe he also understands what they are collectively. Together, your 5 research projects form a body of evidence that touches extraction violations, conflict classification equipment, contract liability, patent, dispute resolution, and coordinated court malfeasance. He looked at each of them. Any one of them is significant. Together, they're a case. The silence that followed was the particular silence of 5 people who already knew something, who had known it separately, and are now in a room where it has been said out loud for the first time. Audra looked at Marcus. You said you'd let us know when it was time to move fast. Yes. Is it time? Marcus looked around the table. At Riven with her hands flat on the surface steady. At Kane precisely still copper-fleck eyes watching everything. At Wren, youngest of them, who had worked in secret in a broken room because nobody had told her she was allowed to do otherwise. At Audra, who had spent months building a map of something she wasn't supposed to be able to see. And at Solvay, pale gold eyes, not holding anything back, If I file all 5 research submissions to their respective registries simultaneously, Marcus said, they will have independent timestamps within minutes of each other. Once they're in the system, they're on the record. Compact registry entries cannot be deleted unilaterally, not by court advisors, not by anyone below the Compact Oversight Board. When? Kane said. Kane. Tonight. Marcus looked at each of them. Valdorn accessed the terminal again 2 nights ago. He's preparing to move. I believe he intends to delete the station server copies within the next 48 to 72 hours. We have a window. He paused. But I need completed submissions from all 5 of you. Tonight. Mine is ready, Wren said. Mine is complete, Kane said. The botanical registry submission has been ready for 3 weeks, Riven said quietly. My transit data is packaged, Audra said. 3 sets of eyes turned to Solvi. Mine will be ready in 4 hours, Solvi said. Marcus nodded. Then Solvi said, if you file all 5 tonight, Valdorn will know by morning. The advisory council will convene immediately. They will file a formal complaint against you with Compact Oversight. They will request your removal. Yes. That will go on your record. Yes. This posting could end your career. The library was very quiet. Marcus thought about Owen's voice on the last call. You always sound like you found something when you go quiet like that. He thought about 14 maintenance log entries all closed within acceptable parameters. He thought about a plant in a box and a lighting node at 30%, and a young woman filling 3 notebooks in a room nobody had bothered to fix. He thought about Pell's handshake, the handshake of a man very ready to leave. I have 1 son, Marcus said. He's 24. He lives in Denver, and I want him to grow up in a world where a person's name in a record cannot be erased because it's inconvenient. He looked around the table. That is the other answer to every question anyone has asked me about why. Nobody spoke, not because there was nothing to say, because sometimes the right response to a true thing is to let it sit for a moment. Then Solvi said quietly, 4 hours. I'll be in my office, Marcus said. He filed the first submission at 11:47 p.m., Riven's Botanical Registry entry. 47 days of documented growth measurements. The species origin designation, Hellevar 4. The habitat loss notation, conflict-related environmental destruction. All of it. Time-stamped. Confirmed. On the record. He filed the second at 11:52. Audra's transit data. The stellar debris mapping with the embedded coordinate anomalies. The movement signatures. The dates. The rendezvous location. Everything entered as formal observational data to the Compact Astrophysical Registry. The third at 11:58. Kane's geological survey. The extraction data. The treaty violation documentation. Every measurement. Every sample analysis. Every timestamp from 7 months of careful, meticulous, unimpeachable work. The fourth at 12:03. Wren's atmospheric proposal. Complete. Thorough. The kind of document that goes into the foundation of something that outlasts everyone in the room. He sat with the 5th submission for a moment. Solvi had sent it at 11:30. 4 hours exactly, as promised. Marcus read it one more time. The materials analysis, the compound data, the structural application implications. And buried in the notation, not prominent, not theatrical, just accurate, the patent dispute cross-reference, the data that resolved it. That couldn't be resolved any other way once it was on the record. He filed the 5th submission at 12:09, sat back. The confirmations came through one by one. Compact Registry automated acknowledgments, timestamp, entry number, verification complete, 5 files, 5 timestamps, 5 independent registry entries, in systems that couldn't be accessed by court advisors, in systems where deletion required an oversight board motion that would be publicly documented. Gone from reach, there forever. Marcus sat in his office at 12:14 in the morning. The hum of the station around him. 16 months remaining on his posting. He opened a new file. Started writing his formal report to Compact Oversight. Every detail. The terminal access log. The movement records. The sensor override. The active credentials. The 9 entries, the 6 matches, the documented pattern of infrastructure interference. He wrote for 2 hours, filed it at 2:19 a.m. Then he made coffee and waited. The response came at 6:08. Not from Compact Oversight, from Advisor Valdorn. He requested an emergency session of the station's formal dispute council. All 5 advisory representatives. Marcus, a Compact regional representative who had apparently been on standby. And this part was new, a senior Compact Oversight officer present via live relay. Real-time relay. Not recorded message. Live. Someone had called Oversight directly, and Oversight had come. Marcus spent the 2 hours before the session reviewing the charter. Every relevant clause, every procedural safeguard, every citation he might need. By 8:55, he was ready. The formal conference space held 8 people. 5 advisors. Marcus, the Compact regional representative, a tall, formal man named Decker, who had the manner of someone who had seen many disputes and found most of them tedious. And the oversight officer on the relay screen. Valdorn opened without preamble. Coordinator Voss has engaged in a sustained pattern of unauthorized interference with the internal affairs of 5 sovereign delegations. He has overruled legitimate advisory directives, made unilateral decisions regarding delegation member access rights, and most recently submitted confidential delegation research materials to external registries without court authorization. Calm, measured, every word placed with precision. The research filings, Marcus said, were made at the explicit request of each delegation member under their individual research access rights as defined in Section 9 of the station charter, and in accordance with their rights as designated coordinators designees under Section 11. Decker looked up. Section 11 designees. 5 formal designation filings were submitted to the station administrative office on day 72, Marcus said. Each delegation member exercised their right to designate a personal operational liaison under Section 11 of the Charter. I accepted each designation. The filings are in the station's administrative record. Decker was reading his tablet. His reading speed increased slightly, the particular acceleration of someone reading something they didn't expect to find. The designations, Valdorn said, were filed without advisory council notification. Section 11 doesn't require advisory notification. It requires the delegation member's signature and the liaison's acceptance. Both conditions were met, 5 times. Advisor Cauldron leaned forward. The research submissions contain proprietary court information. The research submissions contain data collected by delegation members under their personal research access rights. Data collected by a researcher is not proprietary court information. It's the researcher's work product. Marcus looked at him. The charter is clear on this distinction. The geological data references court territorial assets. The geological data references observable physical measurements of a moon's mineral composition. Physical measurements of naturally occurring phenomena are not proprietary. Cauldron's expression tightened. The oversight officer on the relay screen had not said anything, was watching, listening to everything. Valdorn tried again. The simultaneous filing of 5 submissions in the middle of the night without notification is standard procedure for registry submissions, Marcus said. The charter sets no business hours requirement for research filing. The registry accepts submissions continuously. He paused. The timing was my operational decision as designated liaison for all 5 delegation members. You had no authority. Section 11 gives me that authority. Filed, documented, time-stamped. Marcus opened his tablet. I also filed a formal report with Compact Oversight at 2:19 this morning. The report documents 9 incidents of unauthorized access to station infrastructure systems using inactive coordinator credentials. It includes movement record cross-references identifying the terminal user in 6 of the 9 incidents, and it includes the sensor override log from day 54, documenting deliberate interference with Eastern Ring atmospheric systems. He set the tablet on the table. The report is in the oversight record, available for review. The room went quiet. Valdorn looked at the tablet. For the first time, his expression shifted. Not much. A small shift. the particular expression of a man who has controlled every variable, who has encountered one he missed. The oversight officer spoke. Coordinator Voss, the report you filed at 219, you have full documentation supporting all claims. Full documentation, time-stamped logs, movement records, and an unbroken evidence chain from day 51 of the current posting. And the credentials used in the unauthorized access you have identified the credential holder, former Coordinator Pell, whose credentials were marked as deactivated in the handover documentation but remained active in the system. Marcus paused. The handover documentation was countersigned by a member of the advisory council. He did not say which one. He didn't need to. Everyone in the room knew. Decker had stopped reading his tablet. He was looking at Valdorn. Valdorn's expression was still. Very still. The stillness of a man who is excellent at stillness. But his hands on the table had moved slightly. Just slightly. The only thing that had. The session ended 2 hours later. No immediate ruling. Oversight required time to review the filed report. Decker requested a 30-day operational hold on all pending advisory actions against the 5 delegation members' research and access rights. The hold was granted. Valdorn left without speaking to Marcus. The 4 other advisors left in a group. Quiet. Not looking at him. Decker stopped beside him on his way out. Coordinator Voss, in my experience, documentation of this quality doesn't get assembled in 63 days by accident. No, Marcus said. It doesn't. He looked at him for a moment. The multi-designation posting, Section 11, 5 simultaneous acceptances. The charter permits it. The administrative office approved it. It hasn't been done in 47 years. I know. Marcus looked at him. The last time it was done, it also involved a coordinator who read the charter. Decker made a sound that might, under other circumstances, have been a laugh. The oversight review will take 90 days. The operational hold covers all 5 delegation members in the meantime. I know. I read the procedure. I'm sure you did. He picked up his case. Good morning, Coordinator Voss. Good morning, Marcus said. 91 days after Marcus Voss arrived at Nethavar Station, the outcomes were documented in the Compact's operational record. Advisor Holt Valdorn was placed on administrative suspension, pending Compact oversight investigation. The Joint Advisory Supplemental Payment Account, the account that had funded Coordinator Pell, was flagged for full financial audit. Pell was recalled for oversight review. Riven Veldath's botanical discovery was formally acknowledged by the Compact Registry. 2 senior researchers submitted a joint response requesting collaboration. The species origin notation Hellevar 4 was entered into the permanent Compact ecological record, where it would remain unchangeable as long as the Compact maintained its records. Kane Velkath's geological survey triggered a formal Compact extraction investigation into the Velkath secondary moon. 3 company licenses were suspended pending review. Audra Velsorn's transit signature data was classified as material evidence in an ongoing Compact oversight inquiry into unauthorized diplomatic coordination. Ren Velkarath's atmospheric proposal was accepted for formal review by the Compact Standards Working Group. Preliminary review recommended adoption across 11 stations in the first implementation phase. Solveig Valdori's materials analysis was filed into the Compact patent arbitration record. The arbitration panel issued a preliminary finding within 30 days. In the station maintenance log, the occupant of Eastern Suite 2 was listed as Princess Solveig Valdori. Valdori, 3rd Delegation. Compact Liaison Section 11 Désigné. It had been listed that way since day 2. The evening after the session closed, Marcus went to the Eastern Ring. Pressure seal check. He did it himself. He was going to keep doing it. He was halfway through the 3rd seal when he heard footsteps. Solvi. Formal delegation attire, which meant she had been somewhere official before this. She fell into step beside Marcus without being invited, which was by now simply how it was. They walked through the first 2 junctions in silence. At the 3rd, Solveig said, "The session." "Yes." "Valdorn. He'll be under investigation within the week. The credential evidence is clean. And the 5 of us. Operational hold for 90 days. Your research filings are in the registry. Nobody touches them. Marcus moved to the fourth seal. The Section 11 designations are on the record. Solveig was quiet for a moment. My court will not accept this outcome, she said. Your court is 3 communication relays away, and the governing authority here is the Charter. Marcus checked the seal, which I intend to continue applying. Even now, after this morning. Especially after this morning. He heard Solveig exhale. Quiet. Something that wasn't quite a sigh and wasn't quite relief. Something in between. Then Solveig said, Marcus Voss. His full name. Both words. The way you say something you have been weighing for a long time. The way you say something that is weight. Marcus turned. Solveig was looking at him with those pale gold eyes, not holding anything back. Something steady and warm and entirely unhurried in them. The look of someone who has decided. In the Valdori First Form Acknowledged Presence Address, she said, a name is spoken as a statement of recognition. She paused. I have seen you. I name you. I will not set you aside. Another pause. It is the form used when a member of the royal house names a person as someone who has entered their record and will remain there. Marcus held her gaze. I know, he said. I read the Valdori Cultural Protocol briefing on day 1. Something moved through Solveig's expression. Warm, quietly present. Not quite a smile and more than a smile. The look of someone recognizing something they didn't expect to find in this particular place at this particular moment in their life. You read everything, she said. It's my job. No, Solveig said softly. Reading was your job, what you did with it. A pause. The particular pause that isn't uncertainty, that is choosing the right word. That was something else entirely. Marcus didn't disagree, because he was standing in the eastern ring corridor of Nethavar Station, with the pressure seals humming correctly in the walls, and 5 research files time-stamped in 5 independent registries, and a formal oversight investigation underway. And he was thinking about 14 log entries closed, as within acceptable parameters. About a plant in a box. About a lighting node at 30% for 6 weeks. About a young woman filling 3 notebooks in a corner of a broken room. About 5 names written correctly in a maintenance log on day 2. About all the things that stay true once they've been written down right. He was thinking that 18 months was a long posting, and a long posting was not the worst thing in the world. Good night, Marcus said. Good night, Solveig said. Marcus Voss. Marcus walked back toward the coordinator's office. The hum of Nethavar Station around him. Life support doing exactly what it was designed to do. All 6 rings. All 48 humans. All 5 delegations. All within correct parameters. Not acceptable parameters. Correct ones. He had a lot of work to do in the morning. He was already looking forward to it.